When Jim Bouton wrote Ball 4 back in 1970, it stirred up quite a controversy. Now Bouton's wife, Bobbie, has written a book of her own along with Nancy Marshall, wife of Mike Marshall, former Relief star, and it too has caused some sparks to fly.
Jim Bouton and Mike Marshall, two headliners when they played. Bouton pitched in the World Series. Marshall, a Cy Young winner. And off the field, Bouton, the controversial author of Ball 4. Marshall, a nonconformist.
And now their former wives have taken over center stage. Bobbie Bouton and Nancy Marshall have co-authored Home Games. They paint a picture of being a baseball wife, which is anything but glamorous.
It's an awfully rough life. The glamour parts of it are so few and far between. Marriage is high risk, no matter what your husband is doing. And you add the added pressures of this profession, I think it's difficult. By the time we actually were out of Ball into our separation, we had moved over 60 times.
Wow. Did you ever unpack?
There were a couple of times I really thought about not doing it, because we moved, I think it was 5 times in 2 months in 1970. But certainly, Dodger Stadium is a whole lot better than sitting in Rebel Stadium in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
We wound up in Durango, Mexico in 1977 when Jim was playing AA ball in the Mexican League. And in Durango, we didn't have a telephone, we didn't have a car, and there are no laundromats. So I wound up doing the family laundry and Jim's baseball laundry in the kitchen sink with a scrub board. That's glamorous.
We talked to Jim Bouton. He does not disagree with everything his former wife wrote.
It is difficult in the minor leagues. It's difficult for the player who rides the buses, and it's difficult for the wives who stay at home and wait for the buses to come back. It's not an easy life.
Nancy, are baseball players bad guys?
I liked Mike when I married him, and I like him now. But there's an ego that goes along with it that just won't quit.
It's tough living with someone that has a big ego, even though they need it. You need to have a good ego if you're going to be on the mound and you're going to be facing Pete Rose. You've got to know you're going to get him out.
You speak of little black address books of the other women on the road. Is that a fair picture of all baseball players?
I think it's more fair than it's unfair. I don't know what the percentage is, but certainly in talking to ball players who have been candid with me, that's part of the game. I think it really is.
Is baseball higher risk than other professions? Harder on a marriage, do you think, than other professions?
Well, we were talking to one baseball wife who was on the Minnesota Twins team, and she said out of the 25 players on the 65 championship team, 13 of them are divorced.
If a marriage doesn't work, it's the responsibility of the two people in the marriage. That's it. And they need to work that out themselves. And if they can't, and if a marriage doesn't make it, then it is their responsibility equally. And anybody who tries to blame an industry or blame other women or blame travel or blame something else is simply looking to avoid the responsibility.
A lot of people will meet somebody. Jim met another woman and fell in love with her. That happens to everybody, whether you're a school teacher or a doctor, if you play baseball. But the nonchalance that goes on with the women in baseball bothers me. You know, they laugh at these women. And I guess I question whether they can treat women as jokes and larks on the road and then come back home and treat their wife as a viable person.
Are there any baseball players who are faithful husbands?
I'd be willing to bet any money Tommy John is. I'd bet my life on it.
One player?
Well, don't press us.
I'm standing next to two of the wives of the Detroit Tigers, Wanda Wilcox and Angie Leach. What effect did that book have on you?
Well, I think it made me appreciate my husband a lot more. Just made me think about the effect that baseball's had on both of our lives, but just made me realize how lucky I am that I have a good, solid marriage.
It reminded me of things that I had been through. It didn't make a great impact on me. It didn't change the way I felt about the game or my husband. And I found it entertaining reading, but again, no big change.
What about the wheel that Nancy Marshall talks about?
Well, you know, I got in pro baseball in 1968, and I gave up a modeling career at that time, and I decided that Milt needed me more than I needed me. So I devoted myself and my time to him and his career, and knew that my time would come again when I would have the opportunity to do what I wanted to do.
I think what Nancy was trying to say, and what she realized later on in her marriage, too late, unfortunately, that it's important that you have your own self-identity and you not make your husband and his career the most important thing in your life. And I think that in our case, I've made sure I've gone to college and I'm teaching now, and I have a lot of interests other than Rick in baseball.
She used a line in the piece talking about, and I have to get a quick answer, about ego, that they use nonchalance and jokes on the road and then come home and not make the wife a viable person. You agree with that?
Not really, no. I think that the guys have to really concentrate on the game, and I don't think they're worrying about whether or not they're making their wife a viable person or not. I think the wife has to be a strong, independent person to begin with to stay in this game and to survive.
It's really a rough life, but you just have to be strong.
And you two are strong, and we thank you. Wanda Wilcox, Angie Leach. And now let's go back to 30 Rock.
Coming up.